Wishing all of you a Shana Tova Masuka, a happy new year. You may be filled with brachos. May Hashem be able to be geyser all of us in the sefer of Chaim Tovim Aruchim L'Shalom, filled with Yeshuas and the Chavis and Gulos and Mitzvah the Gula Shlema. We approach Rosh Hashana once again, and one of the things that we do on Rosh Hashana is something that very often we do out of habit, and we don't always think about it, or if we do think about it, we sometimes find it to be a curiosity, and not always well explained. I would like to take the opportunity tonight to talk about the Simanim that we have on Rosh Hashana. Everybody has different minhagim. Some people do with apples and honey, and some people do with estrogim, and some people do all sorts of different similes. So we make up their own simanim. What is the purpose of simanim, and what is the significance? What do we learn from it? And why particularly on Rosh Hashana that we're talking about this day of judgment, the day where Memamlech Hashem, what is it that we are doing? So let's write down our question. So first of all, what are simanim? What is the purpose of them? Why do we do them specifically on Rosh Hashana? A very good question is, are they a tefillah or an omen? What is it that we're doing? Normally we have a tefillah, we attach to it. So what's the purpose of eating the foods if you're already saying the tefillah? Once we've established that they are important, then what do they represent? And why these foods and not others? And is there any particular order? Hopefully we will be able to address these questions and be able to make it your Suda, your Yom Tov Suda, more meaningful as you proceed using these simanim. So the first question let's talk about, are they a tefillah or are they an omen? What is it? What's the purpose of eating these foods? So let's start off with looking at a Gemara. It's a Gemara in Horius, and says, the Gemara, Omer Abaye, the Gemara is discussing whether a siman is a milsa, whether signs are important, are they relevant, are they real, they're coming from Hashem, can we trust them? And when the Gemara concludes that they are, so Abaye says, therefore, therefore a person should do so on Rosh Hashana. And he should have Kar, Rubia, Karti, Silka, and Tami. Let's see that a little bit better. Right? The Gemara in Horius, when it brings this Gemara, it says again that it's important the person should that a person should be ragil to look at on Rosh Hashana these things: Kara, Rubia, Karti, Silki, and Tami. Interestingly, the Gemara's Girsa is that we should just look at it. However, the Gemara in Krisus says that we should eat it. That a person should ragil to eat. And in fact, even those Girsas that change the Gemara in Horius also to have this lashon of eating. We may hopefully get to an explanation what's the difference between eating and looking at it and why is there significance. But on a simple level, if a person is very uncomfortable with eating some of the foods, there is significance just by looking at it and then saying the Yerushalayim, perhaps without the shame Hashem with it. One can benefit from saying the Yerushalayim and looking at the foods even if you're not comfortable eating them. So we see from this Gemara that, to answer our initial question, are they a tefillah or just an omen? They are okay to do, right? The Gemara says it is something. Simanim milsi. It's not an omen. It's not something that is inappropriate or just superstition. But the Gemara doesn't say what they are exactly either. So what are they? Let's look into a little bit of a deeper meaning. Why do we use simanim? I have found three explanations. What is the concept of the simanim? What is its purpose, right? What are we doing? So they are going to be using the concept of finding a lost object. A second thing is going to be a clue that there's something more than meets the eye. And then finally, I'm going to share with you a concept that I found in the Bnei Yisrael that explains the word simanim milsihi in a much more profound way. But let's start with the beginning. The first idea is it's finding a lost object. Just like if we know the halach is if someone loses something and he wants to claim ownership to it, he needs to provide a siman. And he has to be able to show that it really does belong to him. And of course, the stronger the siman, the greater his ability to acquire his object. So when we are able to show with a siman that this object belongs to me, I'm showing ownership. So what we're doing on Rosh Hashana is we want to show that the world really belongs to Hashem. And by showing Simanim, by saying that this itself comes from Hashem, and therefore it's this indication that we can use it in order to connect to Hashem. So we have found a connection between the physical world and its creator, which follows the concept that we're trying to be Mamlech Hashem. And as we're Mamlech Hashem on Rosh Hashana, we do so by even indicating our foods that we're eating are also part of that kingdom, the kingdom of Hashem. It's similar to trying to take a Sefer Torah and putting a crown on the Sefer Torah. We want to show that Hashem is the king. There is this great video I recently found of a Hachnasa Sefer Torah that took place in the city of Ratzford, which is in Hungary, by the Ratzford Hasidim. The symbolism that I see in this video is here you had a husband and wife, Rabbi and Mrs. Baruch, that donated the Sefer Torah in 2024, and he had his wife put the crown on the Sefer Torah as they were donating it. So again, the concept of trying to connect the physical world that we are existing in and crowning Hashem as our king, which is the Avodah Rosh Hashana. So we do so in our food, also connecting our physical world and our physical appetites and pleasures, and also being Mamlech Hashem in that fashion. Here's a second explanation, a little bit along the same lines, but a little deeper, and that there's a clue that there's something more. When I am able to use a simon sometimes wakes me up to say, that's not what I would have expected. There must be something more than meets the eye. So here the idea is that we know that Hashem created the world, and there's the famous Zohar that says, Mistaka Baraisa Bara Alma, that Hashem looked into the Torah and he created the world. And the way the Svarim explain that concept is not that it's an abstract blueprint that Hashem referred to and used as a reference in order to create the world, but the Torah itself was the tool that Hashem used to create the world. So if we think of a video that's being projected onto a wall, and I have to use a tool in order to make that projected there, which is the projector. Just like it would be impossible for there's something to be on that video on the wall that didn't come from the projector, that's not found in miniature in the projector, so too we say that when Hashem used the Torah to create the world, everything that we find in the world has to be in Torah, right? Because Torah was that initial projector that was used to filter the light from Hashem in order to create the world. And therefore, when I find food and I look at the food and I'm able to say that Hashem is the one who created, and we're going to use it now again to be Mamlech Hashem, so we're able to see that there is more than meets the eye, even in our daily mundane activities of eating, sleeping, drinking, that Hashem is there, the Torah is there, Hashem used the Torah to create this very food that I'm eating. So once again, it's the concept of Malchus, which again is very strong on Rosh Hashana. So by using these Simanim, we're able to bring Hashem's kingdom into the greater world, even into the physical things that we don't always associate with Hashem. And by that, we are being Mamlech Hashem on ourselves and on our world. Similar concept to before, but in here what we're saying is not that just that Hashem is the creator. The first one explanation would have been that Hashem is the creator. We bring a simile that he's the owner of it. Here we're actually saying that Hashem is constant in it, and therefore it's a little bit of a deeper level. But a third level, a third explanation why do you Simanim, I found in the Bnei Yisrael, and he explains the concept of Simone Milsehi. And he uses the Magid, a famous word from the Magid, to be able to explain it. It says the first pasuk in the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es, and he says the first Maimer, Hashem used 10 Mamors to create the world, and if you count through the first parak in Bereshis, you only find 9. So everybody asks, what was the 10th Maimer? What was the first Maimer? And the Magid says that the first Maimer was found in the word Bereshis bara. When Hashem first created, what was the first thing Hashem created? S. Aleph to Taf. In other words, Hashem, the first thing Hashem created was words. It was the alphabet in order to be able to have speech. Before that creation, there wasn't even speech. So the first thing that needed to be created was speech in order for Hashem to use speech in order to create the next 9 steps. But the first thing that Hashem used was the koyach of creation to create the alphabet, the aleph base. That's Bereshit S. So therefore, it says of Tzvi Elimelech, who wrote the sefer called the Bnei Yissaschar. He says what the point that we're trying to do here is that we want to tap into that koyach that existed before creation. Before creation, there wasn't any speech. That's what we're saying. The first thing Hashem used to create the world, He needed to first create the letters in order for there to be speech. What preceded that? What preceded that was Hashem's Ratzon. Hashem wanted to create the world. There was a tremendous ava, this tremendous desire to be able to give, and that itself was enough to be able to do creation. So Simanim, by able to use Simanim, which means I'm using something that's greater than speech, that preceded speech, just an indication to be able to communicate without speech, that is milsahi, that are words, that is the strongest words. And what we're trying here to do is to connect to that koyach that existed before speech. Before Hashem created the world, there was a ratzon to create as the world, which was a tremendous source in Ava. Hashem wanted to be meitiv. And that existed before the creation, just before the creation. And we want to remember that. You want to remind Hashem Zechronis. What are the Zechronis to be Zochel the Torah? You want to be reminded the good things before Hashem is to remember that and to be more that Ava that existed before creation. And we do that by using a language that preceded creation. And that's again Simanim. Says that same reason why we blow a shofar which is only a voice, it has no words, because we're trying to again tap into that tremendous ava that existed Hashem has for His creations before He created the world, before there was any Aveirus, so that He will feel that connection once again, and we will be Zoiche Bedin as we connect into that ava and B'chol. Hashem will overlook and forgive all of our transgressions as we awaken that ava that existed, that preceded speech. And that's one of the concepts that we use as shofar as well. So we have answered our initial questions. What are simanim we're talking about? We gave 3 explanations, right? We have to connect to Hashem, to this world, or to be married to Hashem, to awaken our connection to Hashem, or to connect to that ava that existed even before creation, and that's why we do it on Rosh Hashana, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be Mamlech Hashem, and we're supposed to have Zichronos, be Mazgir. We should mask ourselves in front of Hashem L'Toiv, and the way we do that is with the shofar, and now we're seeing we can do that with Simanim. And therefore, they are not particularly a tefillah, but they are a connection, a tzibur. They make a connection between us and Hashem on a very profound level, and certainly not an omen. Okay, now we get to the next question though. But what do they represent? And furthermore, what foods do we use and why these and not others? So, what do they represent and why these foods? And is there a particular order are the questions that we will now address. So if you look inside the Gemara again said that what's the order that we should eat? Person should be yargil to do what? Kara, rubia, karti, besoki, betami. What are those things? Kara is what squash or some sort of a vegetable along those lines. A rubia are beans, karti are leeks, silk are beets and dates, and tamri are dates. So if we're going to follow the order what the Gemara talks about, let us now look at some of the simanim that we do, right? Following the order of the Gemara. The first one that we're going to talk about is honey. 1 second. That's not the first thing that's listed in the Gemara. Well, why are we doing the first encounter is not the one that's listed? We'll talk about that in a moment. But the first thing that we do is honey, and honey represents the Shana Tov and Masuka. But the Sfarim say the reason why we use honey is because honey, Tvash, is Gematria 306. And with that, we're being Ma'ara in Shemayim of Harachamim. So not only are we trying to get the symbolism of a Shana Tov and Masuka, we're also trying to connect and be ma'orim midas harachamim, to mamtik any din that there would be, to sweeten any din that would be, and to bring out the Hashem's rachamim. And then we dip our challah in the honey, right? And here we do that even without any particular yerotza, and then should be a shana tov musuka. We now use honey instead of salt. Some people have made to do both, but it's in addition to the salt, or in place of the salt, we dip the honey because we are trying to connect with Omer Rachamim. Okay, hopefully now we will follow the order of the Gemara. The next simon that most people will find is that they use a apple. Once again, we're not following the order of the Gemara. Question to be answered shortly. We use a tapuach. Why do we use a tapuach? So I found in the Svarim it says because the tapuach has the same letters as patuach, as opening, as a door. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to open the door between us and Hashem. And this is one of the answers to the question why we do this siman first before we do the other simanim, even the ones that are listed in the Gemara. And that is because we're trying to open the door. And once the door of Rachamim, of Ava, is opened, then all of our tefillos and every avodah that we do that night will be open and we'll be able to gain interest. And then we can follow, perhaps, and do the other orders. But the first thing we want to do is to get the tapuach, to make a patuach, to make a pesach, to make an opening. Furthermore, they say that the reach in Gan Eden, in the Gan Eden, there was an apple orchard. We find by Yitzchok, when Yaakov Avinu comes to get the brachas, he says he smells on him the reach of Gan Eden, and Rashi says that it was that of an apple orchard. So the fruit of Gan Eden, of our source, is going to be the apple. So again, we want to use the apple as the sweet fruit to dip it in honey, and we will say the bracha. This also answers the famous question that has perplexed people for many decades, many years. I think it's more of a recent concern, but it's definitely a concern. Maybe that was, how is it that we take the apple before the Shiva Saminim? The order should be that the Shiva come first. So, just like we're saying, is because there's a concept. You have the symbolic concept of a tapuach, which is the opening. You want it to be first. It's also what's most common. It's what the kids have a favor for too. They are more looking to it. And halachically, when you have the Shiva Saminim, but you have a fruit that you want to eat first, then it precedes the Shiva Saminim. Shiva Saminim is only if all fruits are considered equal in front of you. The famous example is if a person is eating a ice cream on an ice cream cone. So halachically, the mezainis should come first, and the sha'akol of the ice cream comes second. But if a person were to eat the mezainis of the cone first, he might find that his ice cream is slipping underneath through the hole and going on the floor. And he doesn't really want the ice cream cone. He wants the ice cream before the cone. So he's allowed to make the bracha, he's allowed to eat the ice cream first, even though it's not in the order of brachas, because he has a specific desire to eat it that way. So to here we now understand that apple has tremendous significance to be eaten first, dipped in honey, and therefore it can precede the halacha of Shiva Saminim. It's important to remember that though you have to make a bracha of eitz on the apple, it's not included in the hamotzi, fruits in general not included in the su'uda, and therefore the bracha of hamotzi, and therefore your person should eat a bite of the apple first with the bracha of eitz, and then afterwards say the yiratzayin. Thank you to our local poisik over here to share that reminder with us. And we make that by the yiratzayin should the chadish shalom shana tov and that Hashem should be mechadish to us, upon us, should decree upon us a shana tov and sukkah. And when we say that ha'etz, it's important to remember that we have in mind all the other fruits that come afterwards. There are those poskim that say you should do similar with a hadama. You should take something that's clearly not meant to be eaten in the Suda, like, for example, a peanut or a popcorn or something along that that's not part of the Suda, and make a hadam on that and have in mind the other things afterwards. However, many people hold that the foods that are eaten afterwards are normal foods that are eaten during the meal, and therefore you don't have to do that. So that you should ask your local Orthodox rabbi. Number 3, what is the third siman that we use? So now we will finally go in the order of the Gemara, even though that's not particularly the order that people do. And we have already shown that it doesn't really make a difference the order. If you have a reason to do it, you can do one before the other. And if it's that's the way it's being served in your meal, and that's the order that you find it. Like some people will do the fish next because that's what comes next. That is also fine because that's what you want to do. But we're going to follow now with the way it says it in the Gemara. The Gemara, the next one is kara, which is squash. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to show you the deeper meaning of kara that we would not necessarily have assumed. So, squash, the bracha, the Yiratzon that we often say is Yiratzon Belifnei Avinu Yerushalayim. Some people stop saying the Shem Hashem on these ones. Some people continue to say the Shem on these ones. Some people do the first night. Some people do the second night as well to say with the Shem Hashem. Everyone should do according to their meaning. Shatikra Roya Gezar Dinenu Hashem should tear any bad Gezeros there are. Vayikro Lefanecha. So you're saying when Hashem should be called out in front of you all of our good deeds, our good merits. So why do we use this squash? We see here that we're playing on the word of karab in two ways. One is with an ayin, we switch the aleph to an ayin, so it should mean tear. And it also can mean that it should mean karab to call out, should be read in front of Hashem. But Rashi, interesting, says a different reason. Rashi says a deeper meaning. Rashi says that the reason why I use kara is because it's in their language it's called a dalas. It also means the word delas. If you make the ayin small, it's a letter that can sometimes be not pronounced. It's a delas. So it's again the concept of opening a door. We want to open the door of to Shemayim so that all of our tefillos will be answered and go straight to Shemayim, and Hashem should answer them. But additionally, the word dalas is oladas, to know, and representing that, be able to connect to Hashem in a very profound way. Some people say to connect to the concept of fixing the chait of the Eitz Hadas. There are many simanim and many deep understandings in these simanim that Chazal were kaveya. And that's the final concept I would like to share with you tonight, is that to answer the final question, why is there a difference between these simanim that are brought down and making up our own simanim? Many people have minhagim to do different things, to do a raisin and celery, try to do a raisin, celery, all sorts of things that they do, or some the Sfaradim have minhagim to eat shroigim and who knows what. Of course, what we are seeing here is by all the three reasons that we gave already. Whatever foods we do, if we use it to connect to Hashem and we use it to be able to make a tefillah in front of Hashem and to find a deeper meaning when seeing Hashem in the world, they are all profound things to do and they're good things to do. However, when we use the ones that have come through Messiah, which this picture is an indication of history, that through the time of in history we have in Messiah, the ones that are coming from the times of the Gemara, the ones that we find that are written from in the Svarim HaKadoshim, or that are passed down from our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers, so they often have deeper meanings beyond that which we know, and therefore they have extra benefits. But a person is allowed to do simanim of whichever he would like, as long as you're connecting it to Hashem, and it's a form of a tefillah, a form of connection, you can do them. But these ones have extra power. The ones that we find in the Gemara, the ones that we find through our Messiah, have extra power. So with that, I would like to wish you all a ksiva tova and a good gebench jura. May Hashem see all of our schuyos. May these simanim bring around into Hashem, and Hashem should have the zichronos of all of our good deeds. And we should be all nichtav v'sefer chayim tovim aruchim with shalom, and it should be a year filled with parnasa, a year filled with refuis and shleimus, a year filled with connection to Hashem, and it should be a year of geula, not only our personal geula, but a geula shleima that we so desperately need. It's a year that we mention Hashem should be able to bring back all of the captives and all of the people who are hurting so hard. It should be refuis shleima to everybody, and it should be a year of shalom, a year where we are able to have no more wars. A year where we have no more fights, not within Klal Yisrael and not without Klal Yisrael. A year where we're able to connect to our friends, to our brothers, and to our Father in Shemayim. Have a good year.